Go inside the Crimson Tide. Tider Insider TV with Rodney Orr and Gary Harris.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome in to another edition of Tider Insider TV presented by Buffalo Rock. Tonight, that sounds good. Sierra Mist Natural, made with natural sugar, healthier for you. We're enjoying that beverage tonight. Alongside Rodney Orr from TiderInsider.com, I'm Gary Harris, and Rodney, it's obvious we are going to be talking Iron Bowl tonight. Well, it's not like Alabama didn't have its chances to put away Auburn early. The Tide, though, made too many big mistakes. They gave up big plays that resulted in touchdowns, and on offense, they left points on the field. In the second quarter alone, Bama turned the ball over inside the 20 twice and dropped a pass in the end zone for a surefire touchdown. And to start the second half, Alabama gave up a 70-yard bomb on the second play of the third quarter. And despite their statistical dominance and their 24-0 second quarter lead, Alabama shockingly lost the game 28-27.
Squandered some opportunities which were critical to the outcome of the game. Fumbling the ball right before the half. Another time we had the ball probably inside the 20 when Mark fumbled. Got down there a couple times and couldn't score. Those two opportunities were huge relative to the production that we had. We didn't get as many points as maybe we could have.
All right, Rodney, let's get down to the nuts and bolts, and I think I've almost already summed it all up. Alabama early in this game was ready to play. The game plan was perfect. 21 first quarter points, 24-0 mid-second quarter, yet at halftime, it was 24-7. You and I in the press box said, wow, plays like that one right there by Trent Richardson could come back to bite Alabama. They had a great plan. For the most part, they executed, but the mistakes were costly. And the big plays they gave up, kind of negated the fact that they shut down Cam Newton on the ground.
Well, first of all, Gary, in a game like this, how many times have you seen these kinds of games, Alabama and Auburn, where one team jumps ahead significantly and the other team comes back? So you knew Auburn was going to come back. That wasn't a surprise. Obviously, Alabama could have easily put the game away. I don't think there's any question about that. One more touchdown the first half, and the game is over. But, Alabama couldn't do it. It's kind of indicative for the entire season, to be quite honest with you. Alabama probably hasn't played a complete game, and they didn't do it on Friday.
Yeah, but what's disappointing in this particular game, this just isn't any game. And this is a game that the team had a 24-0 lead in, all the momentum. At one point in the second half, it was 340 yards of total offense to 2. We're not talking about Alabama just playing well. We're talking about complete domination. They were absolutely dominating on both sides of the ball. So you got to give Auburn credit, obviously, for coming back in that environment. But at the same time, I know teams jump out and other teams rally, but very rarely do you see one team so dominant that early in the game that loses the game. It doesn't happen that often. Well,
it doesn't. But again, Auburn's a good football team. They deserve credit. And I think, again, the rivalry is such, Gary, that, they weren't going to lay down there. They've played well all year long. Again, I know they were dominated in the first half, but they kind of came back and played like they had played the entire season. And Alabama played like they had played the entire season, inconsistently, not playing an entire game, not putting teams away. And, when those things happen, you saw the result.
A lot's been written about toughness, or maybe Alabama's lack thereof. Do you think Auburn was a tougher football team?
Well, probably so. Because they played that way most of the season. But then again, you look at Alabama, and again, the youth on defense, the inconsistency on offense. They've never been in rhythm all season long. So, it looked like they had put it all together in the first half. But it's kind of indicative of what we saw all season long.
You're Mr. Tider Insider, so I'm asking you a tough question. Another thing that some people have brought up, this is a team that has recruited since Coach Saban got here, arguably the top class in the country a couple of times. He's been in the top 10 every year that he's been here. You had players like Mark Barron, who tore his pectoral muscle in the second quarter, still in the game. Julio Jones went out. Darius Hank had a couple of bruised ribs, and Coach Saban talked about the effects those injuries had on the team. Have they not recruited well enough? They've got some backups that can come in and play.
But a lot of those young guys, again, people expect guys to step in right away, and everyone develops at a different rate. There's a lot of talent there in the younger classes, but again, a lot of those guys haven't maybe developed as quickly as some thought they would. Again, it doesn't mean that they won't eventually be great players, but they're just not there yet. Now, you know, Gary, obviously some guys could have not played, and certainly you talk about wide receivers, they don't have somebody that can replace Julio Jones. Nobody has anyone that can replace a guy like Julio Jones. Georgia doesn't have anybody that can replace an A.J. Green. So, again, when a guy like that goes down, it's going to be very difficult for anyone to replace.
All right, Nick Saban has his 24-hour rule, but this one is probably going to take a little longer than that for Alabama people to get over. In the history of the Iron Bowl, it's not in the margin of victory, but it's in ways that you lose the game or ways that you win the game. That's what's remembered. In this case, Auburn fans will make posters of this and take pictures and write stories. And for Alabama fans, they'll do their best to forget it. Rodney, because it's the Iron Bowl, everything's magnified. But would it have been easier if Auburn had just came in and been the dominant team throughout the game? Is it harder for the fans because of the way this game was lost?
No, I look at it from a different perspective. I don't look at it that way. Obviously, this is a bitter loss when you lose by 1 point in the fashion that they did. But at the same time, when you look at Alabama, I think there's a lot of overreaction, to be honest with you. I think there's always overreaction to this game in this state. But when you look at Alabama, I mean, they're 4 or 5 points from being in the SEC championship game as a repeat performer in the SEC championship game for the 3rd straight year. They could have an opportunity to go to Glendale. And I mean, you know, they're just a player or two away from that. And again, I think that's the real perspective that you need to look at it from. And when you consider, and we've talked about this since the summer, they replaced 9 guys on defense, 4 first-team All-Americans. That's not easy to do. A lot of leadership there. You talk about Terrence Cody. You talk about Rolando McClain. You know, you lost your top 3 corners. Javier Arenas, nobody was more of an emotional leader on that team than Javier Arenas. So that's a lot of guys to replace. And you can't expect some of these young guys to step in and pick up that role at this early of a stage. So, again, I think some of the expectations were unrealistic.
And now it's time to recruit. And you've got some great updates now on recruiting on TiderInsider.com, so folks check that out. Well, the Tide also needs some time to heal up both mentally and as well as physically. It's been a long season. Quarterback Greg McElroy knows all about the latter. He sustained a concussion on this play late in the game on Friday against the Tigers. Sunday on his Twitter account, he thanked everyone for their thoughts and prayers. He also said he feels great and is on his way to a very quick recovery, which is good news for the upcoming bowl game. Speaking of bowl games, everybody's calling me here at the station saying, where's Alabama going? Well, I don't know, because a lot of it's going to have to do with what happens Saturday in the SEC championship game, but you see some possibilities there on your screen, some attractive matchups. Another one that I'm hearing possibly in that Cotton Bowl could be against Texas A&M. So Alabama's going to get a good bowl game. They're an attractive team. They're the defending national champions. They travel well. So it'll be a good opportunity for the Tide, Rodney, to get out and play one more game. And let's don't forget, win 10 games or more for the 3rd consecutive year. So there's still a lot to play for.
Yeah, and I saw you mentioned the Cotton Bowl in Dallas, and I know, as we know, Alabama opens the 2012 season against Michigan in Dallas. And I know Nick Saban likes that because Alabama is trying to recruit the state of Texas, gives Alabama a lot of exposure in that area to high school kids.
And something else that I want to mention in regards to the bowl situation. It's practice time for a lot of young guys. Those young guys that you talked about, maybe that weren't ready to play, can get a lot of quality practice time and get a head start on the spring.
Yeah, a lot of the young offensive linemen, defensive backs, what have you. Also, don't forget the young quarterbacks. As we know, next year is going to be this spring, quite a battle between A.J. McCarron and Phillip Sims, and it'll give them an opportunity in the bowl practices to get some more experience.
All right, still to come on TITV, more from the Iron Bowl, including a pregame controversy that has led to the dismissal of one UA part-time employee. But up next, we'll talk about problems on the hardwood. Why has standout JaMychal Green not been on the Tide team? We'll explain. And also, we'll take your phone calls and get to your emails. I know many of you are ready to get in and talk about the Iron Bowl, recruiting, the future, and much more. There is the information you need on your screen to get in touch with us. Stay tuned. You're watching the show that takes you inside the Crimson Tide, the one, the only, Tider Insider TV, presented by Buffalo Rock. More TITV in just a moment, but first I want to talk to you about one of my favorite places to eat in Tuscaloosa, Nuke's Express Cafe, 205 University Boulevard East, just up from the UA campus, open for lunch and dinner 7 days a week, and it is terrific. Oven-toasted sandwiches, California-style pizzas, hand-tossed salads, soups, and more, all made with fresh ingredients. They've got a beer and wine menu and a terrific dessert menu featuring cakes, brownies, and Rice Krispie treats. Call 758-2455 for all your catering needs. Nuke's Express Cafe. If you've been there, I know you've gone back. If you haven't, do yourself a favor and get in as soon as you can. You will, like me, love Nuke's Express Cafe. All right, time to talk a little basketball. Alabama not off to a great start, 3-3. They went 0-3 at the Paradise Jam in the Virgin Islands, and then they returned to the States. And Anthony Grant promptly suspended his best player, arguably his best player, JaMychal Green, for conduct detrimental to the team. Yesterday, Coach Grant held a press conference. He was asked about JaMychal. He said, Rodney, that he met with him over the weekend, basically told him what he needed to do to get back on the team, but as of right now, nothing had changed. Now, listen, JaMychal Green's a good player, but at the same time, Coach Green is making a statement that he is the coach. You will do things his way. You will abide by his rules, and your talent isn't a factor when it comes to that. In other words, if you don't do it his way, you're not going to
Well,
play.
you've got to maintain the discipline on your team, Gary. You can't let, again, you've got to keep control, and I think this is what he's doing. He sent a message not only to Green, but the rest of the players, and that's kind of what you'd expect from Anthony Grant. That's, the kind of coach he is.
It's exactly what I would expect,
Yeah.
and it does send a message. And the message is this, as you said, it doesn't matter who you are.
That's right.
Arguably, you may be my best player, but if you'll suspend JaMychal Green, you'll suspend anybody else. I think it'll make him a better basketball team. I hope JaMychal does what he needs to do to get back on the squad. There's no doubt they're better with him. At the same time, I think Anthony Grant is handling things the right way. Okay, coming up, one UA employee plays the wrong tune, and a former Alabama player could soon become a current one again. We'll explain. Plus, we'll take your phone calls and emails. Give us a ring, 205-348-9882, or email us at TITV@WVUATV.com. Stay with us.